home of peace and tourism. That's what Plateau State is known for. But recently, there appear to be a little bit of issues here and there, which the government says it's handling properly. And we have someone who would put us through all the government has done and still doing in order to ensure that peace returns comfortably to Plateau State. And he is the governor of the state, Simon Lalong. Thank you so much for giving us your time on this special interview. In the past 6 years, you've been the governor of Plateau State. And within that period, we've seen relative peace. But quite recently, there appear to be some unrest here and there. Tell us, how did you manage that 6 years before we got to this point?
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, we call Plateau home of peace and tourism because in the history of this country, the weather of Plateau is very, very attractive. You will also notice that in Plateau State, we had the highest concentration of whites. That's why the tin mining was here, flourishing. And every time in Nigeria, people wanted holiday, all the foreigners will all assemble here in Jos because of the weather. So because of that, we had a lot of influx of people, nationalities from Nigeria. As it is now, we have about 53 ethnic nationalities resident in Plateau State. So when you want to have peace, you must find ways of accommodating all the interests of these people. In the past, I think there were cries about segregation, there were cries about unfairness, there were cries about lack of justice. And because of that, we started having crises during political periods, especially political periods. We came when there was serious crisis everywhere. Killings here and there, segregated settlements here and there, and then flight in industries, businesses were closed. People were running back to their various states. People were running out of the state, of even the country, back to their countries. Where they had this wide settlement, everybody was running away. And in order to do that, you need to go back to the drawing board. First, the sentiments about indigenous driving people here, driving others, I said, no. We want to bring back people. And so in order to do that, we now brought the two warring factions together. At that stage, it was Fulanis within the northern part of this country, of this state. In fact, we were able to do that with the assistance of the NGOs, security organizations. We brought people together. And don't forget, within that time too, because of crisis, the past government was not able to pay salaries of over 9 months, 12 months for local governments, and 30 months for pension. So there were a lot of problems, and then this hunger and everything. So people were not happy. So even if you settle that one, you will come back and settle the crisis in the stomach. So we put all of them together. And I must say that with the help of the paramount ruler, the Bongom Jos, we were able to sit down with him, and we brought the two warring factions together.
So your strategy then was more of bringing people together,
finding
the common interests?
Common interests where they are.
Okay.
And then especially even in appointments, we appointed everybody. Where they were seeing that the people were all neglected, we brought them in and we gave them appointments. Someone will say, why would you give Mr. A appointment? And I will ask, why also why do you deserve appointments? Because in political environment, what you do is the man who brings the votes that will get what he will get from that vote. You are voting because you want something. You don't vote for the government and you say you want to get something. No, the government will also accommodate you, but first of all, in political considerations, they will give it to those who work for the party, But in our own case, we didn't even go to that extent. What we did was to accommodate all the 53 ethnic groups in Plateau State. All of them were given appointments. Everybody find inclusiveness. We went back to payment of salaries. You can imagine, in some states today, what they inherited is what they are going to leave. Unfortunately, not for Plateau, under my regime. Within 6 months, we were able to pay back backload of salaries. We use our bailouts effectively, and today, in Plateau State, with what we inherited, we are paying salaries as and when due. No arrears. So you imagine, the people were very happy. So the happiness was both in the civil service, the happiness was even within the 53 ethnic groups. All of them found accommodation. And then there were interactions. People were now coming back to live together. And we saw the end of that time, we were able to arrive at the Fulani, the settlement between the Birom and the Fulani, which led us to even a document designed by them, which we also used the document in passing a law in the state, which is supposed to be the ground norm now in the state. That law, if you follow it, you don't have any problem with your neighbor, So we passed that law, and part of that law was what led us in their own deliberation to setting up the only peace building agency in Nigeria by law. We have the peace building agency, okay. And I got a reward even from America and France for setting up. We have that organization in the state.
Your Excellency, you've done quite well, and people will commend you for that period. But where exactly is it coming from now that we are seeing more like daily attack here and there in some parts of the state? What actually went wrong?
Well, first, I must say, when it happened first in Bassa, it was people now going back, violating the agreement to live in peace. Everybody knows how to live in peace. Violating the agreement. These were people who had a crisis. They came to me and said they wanted to be part of the Birom Fulani agreement. And I said, this agreement is even outside the state. We can use it everywhere. Now what happened? If you wake up tomorrow and you find somebody destroying somebody's land, there are consequences, all contained in the agreement. If you find somebody killing a cow or killing somebody, there are consequences. Now those consequences are what we want, for them to now report to the authorities, security authorities. And of course, if it involves your children, you should be ready to expose them. Now part of it is when people refuse to expose the criminals within them. Everybody is shielding his own criminal. Everybody shields his own criminal. And then it gets to a level where there will be so much killings. By that time, everybody will cry on religious basis, because everybody is now looking for people outside.
Religion and ethnicity.
Ethnicity. So people will now come outside. Those who want to feast on it, those who want to make political wins out of it, will take it, crying more than the brief. Okay. This is what we have. Because as a result of the crisis in Bassa that we are handling, we had the unfortunate killings of commuters who are passing from different states, who came in from Bauchi, were moving. Hoodlums will take advantage of them and start killing them. After that, we are managing that one when we had another attack, because some clerics were running around and saying, go for reprisal, go for reprisal. We are trying to control that. We had what happened in Yelwa, again killings of people. So a small minor incident will lead to one another. And by the time it gets to that level, of course you know that the concern about Plateau is that Plateau still habitates about 53 ethnic nationalities. Here you will find a Yoruba man. Here you will find an Igbo settlement. Here you will find a South-South settlement. You will find Fulani settlement. You find everything. So the fate of Nigeria was at play.
Okay, Your Excellency, despite all you have enumerated as things that you did in order to, bring peace to Plateau, you are right now, it appears you are in the no-win situation where left accuses you, right accuses you, and it appears you're just hanging, in there. What are your strategies? What are you intending to do differently this time to get, the people to pay attention to that document you talked about?
Well, you can see the series of the series of meetings we'll be having, the series of consultations. These are what is set out in the document, part of the document. We have the peace building agency. Even when this thing happened, they were up and doing. Before now, in that place that they had this thing occurred in Iriguelan, the peace building had about 34 meetings with those people. 34, almost 34 meetings, which led to even them writing an agreement. They were preparing an agreement, although not concluded when this thing happened. Now they've agreed to go and conclude the agreement. So they will go back and live in peace according to the document that is already in the state. When I also, in addressing the issue of religious crisis, I set up the Interreligious Council. We have Interreligious Council. In addition to NIREC that we have Interreligious Council. All heads of denomination, powerful religious leaders, all of them put in one place with co-chairmen, the JNI and one religious cleric, a professor. So they were having their meetings. So these are already strategies on ground. Yes, there is a breach as far as I'm concerned, but we are able to address it as quickly as possible. The other angle, we are going into a local government election. I'm going into election by next month. We're having local government election. We've tried as much as possible to control utterances of politicians, to control certain things that politicians will put. Because I'm now beginning to see that rearing its head. But whether we like it or not, we must conduct the local government election. I am not one of those that will say, no, continue with transition, continue with caretaker. Supreme Court has ruled that caretaker is unconstitutional. All these places that you see that crisis, just not everywhere, they have been on transition. Because I envisage this. We set up the PLASEC, set up the timetable, and we are conducting election. And so you are seeing the crisis again. We are conducting the election. If they want to do election, let them go and prepare for election, rather than putting crisis. I will not go back to transition again. We must go and conduct the election so that we have democratically elected local government structures in the state. So that is the political angle, because what you saw, the heap of what I see outside, the narrative outside, are mostly political narrative.
Okay. We heard you say recently that the state will go for anyone, particularly clerics, who preach hate.
Yes.
Are we seeing a situation where religious leaders' activities are perhaps behind some of these issues that you're having in the state?
Very well, I must say that. Very well. You can hear what some clerics were saying. I'm a Christian, but as a governor, my duty is to protect every citizen, whether a pagan, even if you are a pagan, to protect people, not only Nigerians, but foreigners that reside within my domain. And that is the obligation I took, and that was the oath of office I took. Now for a cleric to come and sit down and say, no, you must define between A and B. I say, where, as a Christian in the Bible, does it say that? Or where in the Quran does it say that? For a critic to continue to preach hatred. In my own, I'm a Catholic. In my own catechism, right from youth small, I always remind people, I was always reminding people that I was taught at primary school by Reverend fathers and Reverend sisters. I had that privilege. And most of the things they were teaching us was issue of love. Love, love, love every time. So if that is love, it is not love for your parents, not love for your brothers, but love for everyone and your neighbors, your neighbors. So when I see the clerics talking about reprisal, I ask them, but you are quoting wrongly. Big clerics will come out and tell you, no, it doesn't talk about reprisal. So why are they talking about reprisal? Why is the authority leaving them? I'm not supposed to be the one to go and make arrests, but the law enforcement agencies are there.
So from now on, anyone that wants to use his or her platform as a religious body to preach hate should get ready for the long arm of the law in Plateau State?
That is exactly what we resolved even yesterday. Okay, NIREC, that is NIREC. Okay. The Sultan was here, the national president of CAN were here, and they told everybody that this is what they stand on. Anybody that will do that, they will also recommend that he be arrested and prosecuted. Okay,
you were the Speaker of the State House of Assembly and now governor, so you've led the legislative arm and the executive right now, so you have a better understanding of what the issues are. To what extent is this idea of land grabbing sensitive to what is going on in Plateau?
Well, I've been a speaker. Most of these things predate even my being governor today. The issue of land grabbing has always been there when there are crises. And I think those things, they will always come in when after crisis. Because in some of the crises, you will find people being displaced. Some of them will sell their properties and leave that place for insecurity. Some of them will leave that place, will want to come back, but because there's no adequate security to come back to those places. These are some of the things. And to even address the issue, Plateau State, we have passed a law on land grabbing. That is anti-land grabbing. This law has been there now for 2 years. And I asked people, I said, if you know you have evidence that your land is grabbed by anybody, the proper channel is there. It's not that government will go and begin to say, oh, this land has been grabbed, because some of the issues that I see are being confused between those who are not able to go back to their places, their ancestral land, because of insecurity, because there was crisis. And it is the issue of resettlement of IDPs, which is at even the national level.
Sorry, Your Excellency, let me butt in here. People were displaced because of insecurity. They left their ancestral land.
Yes.
But if no one goes back to that ancestral land and they want to come back, they will be able to come back. But the issue here is that the belief out there is that people are attacked, displaced, so that other people will now take over their land. Is that a realistic picture?
Well, for me, if they want to go back, they are willing to go back. Most of the places are willing to go back. At a time, it is not a state matter. It is even also a concern for federal government. We have sent several representations to the federal government. We say the people, the IDPs, so much of these people cannot go back to their various places. Budget was met even for Plateau State. For Plateau State, we have about 20 billion to resettle people. Over 20 billion. And that is even beyond my capacity. Over 20 billion. Those ones that were able to resettle, the few ones we've done, but in some of these places, it requires enormous resources to be able to settle them, because you have to build houses. You recall that in the last one that happened in Gashi, that's what Plateau people are also asking. The Vice President was here. He said they are going to advance 10 billion to Plateau State. Up to today, we have not received the 10 billion. If I received this 10 billion, we would have resettled some of these people. Now, to those people, they believe that the idea, keeping them outside, is for somebody to take care, to take over their lands. As far as I'm concerned in Plateau, that is why I set up a law. By the time I set up a law, if I have money to take you back, if federal government brings money to take you back, I will take you back to that place. If I have security, enough security to put me back, I will take you back. That is when you know that nobody will grab your land and go away with it. The law is very clear. So it is already a law in place. I'm sure many states don't have anti-land grabbing. We have anti-kidnapping. I passed law on anti-kidnapping, the anti-kidnapping law, since last year. I have not received one person that is convicted, because I told them, if I see a case of conviction of kidnapping, I will sign it and they will execute him. But I have not received anyone. Every time people run away, they don't want to go to court. And even the courts too, sometimes are not helping matters. I won't say court generally, because as a lawyer, I know how frustrating sometimes courts are. Well, they will be. Because you go for a case, lawyers will come and start taking bail, start doing this, several things to prolong that case. At the end of the day, you won't see the end of prosecution. So who do you blame? It's completely a holistic thing that we have to address together. As we address the side of executive, we must also address the side of judiciary and even the security organizations who are saddled with the responsibility of doing arrests. If you arrest, bring out sufficient evidence to convict the person. But you don't bring out sufficient evidence and the man is taken to court, he's taken on bail, you won't see him again. After several years, the case is dead.
Okay. Now, the Nigeria Army 3rd Division is located at Rukuba area of the state.
Yes.
And it appeared that when the Mayangu community, which is also in the same local government, Basa local government, was attacked, the army couldn't do or didn't do much. Yes. and you, as the executive governor, you are referred to as the chief security officer of the state. Yes. What do you recommend as measures that would empower state governors like you to maintain their place and be the chief security officer they are expected to be in the real sense of it?
Like other governors are saying, we are crying because governors are crying. We are saying we are chief security officers, but in the real sense, we are not chief commanders. Because a chief security officer should be a chief commander in terms of security. So when you have that and you make a command, you cannot get a command directly and quickly. It appears then something is wrong. And that is why for us, yes, there's agitation for state police, there's agitation for community police, and all sorts of vigilantes and all these things as complementary aspect. In Plateau State, we've done that. We've already trained our 3,000 vigilantes as community police. And we are also asking the federal government to give us the right for them to carry arms. Not the same arms, because we understand that at that level, they can give you the right to buy pump action. So at least pump action, because most of these things that are happening is because we have ungoverned spaces. We have areas here where there is nobody. Somebody will come and stay there and start kidnapping. But already we have trained our people. We are ready. We are only waiting for some of these things, technical technologies to be deployed to our state so that these people will volunteer. They are volunteers, and we can pay them. Because part of the problem, I must say, is that sometimes, and it is also said at federal level, yes, even at Governors Forum we had discussed that. We say, yes, we can go for state police. But at the rate of which sometimes governors are not able to pay salaries, they take salaries for up to 10 months, 8 months in their various states. The same governors are crying for state police. If they give you state police and you refuse to pay them for 8 months.
And they have arms.
And they have arms. What are you going to do? If they don't wreak havoc in your state, they will wreak havoc in other states. So we must all put this thing together, understand the pros and the cons. And that was why we said, okay, for our own case in the northern zone, we said, in the northern Nigeria, we agreed that we're going to start with community policing. Let us give them, start training them. Let us also understand their characters, and let us see the capacity to pay. As you are paying, you recruit them according to your capacity to pay. But any state that will tell me that some of the states, 7 months, 8 months, you are not paying salaries, and then you come and recruit them. Here I inherited it. Yes, we had Operation Rainbow. By the time I came, they were owing about 5-6 months' salaries. How do I put these people to go and do security work for me? How do I give them arms? Tomorrow they will turn against the government.
So in other words, you are very careful in your support for state police. You support it, but it needs to be considered properly, putting all aspects and factors into consideration, including being able to pay.
Very well, because there must be that guarantee. You arm them tomorrow, you leave office, and you leave that burden to the next person. Or you are going for election, you just use them for election, you carry arms against your neighbor, and then all sorts of things. Because it requires serious orientation, it requires serious discipline, and in the recruitment, you must be able to thoroughly assess and screen those people you are recruiting. Otherwise, it shouldn't be for political reasons, but the general insecurity that we are seeing today, there is no doubt that the security is overwhelmed.
Okay. Days ago, the bodies of 16 persons that were killed in a recent attack were brought to the government house, and we are aware that you had visited the communities where you gave assurances of what your government has done, will be doing in pacifying and healing their wounds. Are they buying into your thoughts? Are they keying into what you project to do as the state governor?
Well, if you see the story of my visit to that place, you will see the joy. Even in mourning, when they were mourning, by the time I appeared there, it was think of joy. We were all singing songs, praises before I left. Why? Because these are the same people that in the last 2 years that were crying of injustice, unfairness. that we did justice to them. We just celebrated their first class staff of office a few months ago. If you saw what was happening in that place, joy, cry, they were crying in the stadium. And then all of a sudden, we had this unfortunate incident. I never expected that anybody will go there. They were not in trouble with anybody. These were very innocent people that were staying there. Then all of a sudden, bandits, because I know that that one is completely the work of bandits, work of criminals, will invade that community and start killing innocent people. Innocent people. Up to this moment, we are yet to unravel where they came from, what happened, and by God's grace, I got to that place. All their cries was that there were no security. Because these people understood the terrain, they came down, cut a bridge. They destroyed a bridge. That is the link to that place. So by the time they destroyed the bridge, they went on killing people. So even when security came, there was no bridge to cross. So that made it very, very difficult to even address that issue. But as quickly as possible, it's an army bridge. So I've asked the GOC to give me an estimate. I will ask the army to go back and put the bridge quickly. So we've already agreed. We are setting out, building an outstation, a police outstation in that place. Just like we are also preparing to build a police mobile station in Gases, where it happened like that a few years ago, where it happened like that. Because these people need security. Without security, they cannot go back and settle in that place. So the same thing, what happened in Yelwa was very unfortunate. I've already guaranteed them. We're already making the estimate to build the station. Even today, we're having a security meeting, and by the time we conclude, we'll lay the foundation and build, and also go back to the IG to help us with more policemen so that we can put them there. Otherwise, they will not be safe, even with what we have done there. But they assured me they are very happy. They are going back to that. They are still staying in that place, that I must give them protection. It's very close to the university too. Yeah. That place is that is also addressing the issue of the university.
Yeah.